Are you looking for a sharp 85mm lens that has punchy colors, handles contrast pretty well, and can produce images and video that hold up well to color grading for under $200? I think I have a good idea what you're looking for. Why don't you just click, comrade?
Добрый вечер.
Здравствуйте, товарищи.
Today we're going to be taking a look at the Jupiter 9 85mm f2 lens. This particular lens was made in the KMZ factory in 1956, although the lion's share of the lenses were made in the Carino factory just outside of Moscow and the Arsenal factory in Kyiv, Ukraine. This Soviet lens was based on the Carl Zeiss Sonar 85mm f2 that was designed almost 90 years ago. It's quite an old lens. It came in many different mounts. This particular lens came on a Kyiv camera, and so it has a contact mount, which is a little stiff.
Это то, что она сказала.
But once it's on, it is on. So this lens has 7 elements in 3 groups, and that's a fair amount of glass packed into such a small form factor, and that contributes to some of the characteristic elements that we're going to be talking about in just a few moments. One of the features that makes this lens special are the 15 aperture blades, which produces perfectly round bokeh and a really nice focus fall-off. That fall-off really isolates the subject from the background, which is exactly what you want in a portrait lens. And speaking of depth of field, the aperture ring is a clickless preset aperture ring. It is important for videography because it's a super easy way to subtly correct exposure on the fly. Being an all-metal and glass lens from the 1950s, you can imagine how solidly this lens is built. The lens is about 3 inches long and about 2 inches wide, and it's got a nice hand feel. It's also not terribly heavy, coming in at about 11 ounces or about 315-ish grams. Carrying it around all day is not an issue, which makes this ideal for street photography. A few days ago, I took a few minutes to snap about 50 images with this lens outside, and to be very honest with you, I wasn't impressed. The images seemed a bit soft, the colors were muted, and contrast was very soft. And I was beginning to think that I'd gotten a lesser than version of this lens. As with all Soviet lenses, quality varies because there were so many of them made. But I'd read so many great things about this lens, I didn't want to give up on it yet, and I wanted to give it another try. And I found out that when I had some control over the lighting and the environment, that this was quite an impressive little lens. The colors were much bolder. The contrast was subtle, and the shadows eased into deliciously dark tones. This lens that I thought was soft was actually reasonably sharp, as you can see in these images. The bokeh is plentiful and can have a little bit of the soap bubble effect under the right circumstances. The background blur is thick, but still gives context to the environment while highlighting the subject. Once I used this lens and kind of figured it out, the obstacles became challenges, and I lost myself in the moment. As you can see, the depth of field at f2 is quite shallow. The focus ring on this particular copy of the lens is very stiff, and I managed to dislodge it quite a few times trying to get focus. It needs a CLA servicing, which I will reluctantly cover in a future video. So I ended up taking most of these shots at minimum focus distance and just moving forward and backward to obtain focus. I did feel a bit like a bull in a china shop with the Jupiter 9 because of the minimum focus distance. It's a little bit over a meter. I found that framing and building composition was really a challenge in the tight confines of this vintage store. However, the learning curve wasn't as steep as I thought, and the challenge was met with a little agility and determination. Clowns are weird. Clowns are weird. All right. This lens renders videos flawlessly. It also produces an image that holds up to correction and grading relatively well. This was shot in S-Log3 around +1 to +1.7 exposure, and it was corrected with the Leeming LUT. I think it came out relatively nicely. The link for the Leeming LUT is in the description. The Jupiter 9 has a filter diameter of 49 millimeters, and an ND filter is a necessity when filming video. Okay, so if you're a new shooter, let's talk about the 2 downsides of this lens. Do you remember when I was talking about the 7 elements in 3 groups? Well, that's a lot of glass in a very small form factor. This lens was designed in an era where the coatings, they were in their infancy. Direct light gets into this lens, your image is gonna fall apart. Sure, you can try to make it work for you. We see a lot of great examples of flares in video, but this lens loses its magic when it's exposed to direct light. Secondly, this is a manual focus lens. And if you're a videographer, you know that that's actually not a downside, that's a benefit. But if you're looking for an out-of-the-box solution and you're a new shooter, this lens might not be for you. In conclusion, should you buy a Jupiter 9? Well, if you're looking for a really good 85mm lens on a budget, then absolutely. For the price of a fast SD card, you can get a very sharp lens that handles colors very nicely and can tolerate some post-processing. Sounds like a winner to me. Thankfully, the Jupiter 9 was designed to be a versatile lens for photographers who wanted a compact and lightweight option. There were millions of Jupiter 9 lenses made, and they reside in camera bags around the world. This iconic lens has earned its spot in history, and should earn a spot in your camera bag. Thanks so much for watching the video. Click Comrade is a brand new channel, so we could use all the support you can muster. If you liked the video, go ahead and click the subscribe button and the thumbs up button to be notified when new videos are made.